Yeah, or what does it? I think I played it.
Oh, yeah.
Or I don't know.
I don't know. So first up we have Michelle, and I'm really excited to read this. She can mimic a guinea pig week, just pronounced week, which she has helpfully written for me, exactly. And then she has a rhyming line next to it, proving that she's a poet. As in, I can go into a pet store and completely wreak guinea pig havoc. When I was reading this, I was like really impressed by that. I don't know, I'm easily impressed by rhyming things. She's working on a guinea pig palace, which is 2 by 5 feet and has 2 levels. She once ate 7 spinach artichoke chicken lean pockets in one sitting. Very impressive. So many varied skills. Let's listen into her poetry. This is Michelle Lynn.
I gave them a list of facts and pick and choose, and I was really interested in which ones you guys ended up using. Alright, so I have 4 poems. But first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming because I missed a few of these. So you guys are much better people than me. So thanks. Alright, so I've got 4 poems. The first poem is about my grandmother, my father's mother, and my relationship with her. I don't want to talk too much, but I think one thing I should clarify is that I talk about the nest of the white nest swiflet, which is used in bird's nest soup, which is a delicacy. And I guess, it can cost up to $100 US an ounce. So and I ate a lot of it when I was little before I realized what it was. So you should know that for this one. So right now it's tentatively titled An Ounce of Certainty. My grandmother built by knocking down a wall in her bedroom, a sun that came before waking, a light that waited inside her eyes. And so she caught certainty in her new sunroom as a red knowing pressed against her lids even before they opened. As the oldest, she wanted me to lasso light for my own, to learn too how to trap with the curve of the graspable. Spoons or china bowls, the sleeking, shining bends of birds' nests. Soaked in water sweet with rock sugar, such things sparked between my teeth. These are memories I once loved, even if her love later carved such sticky sweet caverns out of me, etched a poor family's history in enamel, married me to the music of metal instruments and marked cavities. Understand, I wanted to be class like her, sequined and jeweled, a whole woman turning with light. I did not want the nothing of holes she gave me, of tongues clicking against pits and teeth, and skin, and old worn jeans that sang the truth of me. Was it my fault her son left the train too soon, wandered in the wrong district, down the wrong alley, and met my mother? No, I wanted to be hard like grandmother. I wanted to be certain as that glimmering glass room and table, as her hands brightening our spoons. I wanted to take in that light. Oh, Swiftlet, how you spun for me in your dark cave home, strands of pearls from your own throat. For $100 an ounce, my grandmother bought that sun. For $100 an ounce, she left money in my mouth to unmake me. So this next one is a portrait of my mother as Mystique. So by Mystique, I mean in X-Men, she's the blue shapeshifter. I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about. So there's that, and it's also a little bit about this story. So when I was little, I carried my magnetic doodle board everywhere. You guys ever have that where you draw on it and you swiping? So I carried that everywhere, and I was out in public, and I started drawing breasts on them. And she freaked out. My mom was freaked out and dragged me out. But so that's part of that too. So portrait of my mother as Mystique. The child understands a body drawn blue can tide skies beyond pains, can sift into the moon and back. Change is feasible, is furious, is the many filaments of the self surfacing at her magnetic doodle board and bending to her pen. The shape of her is anything before the pen becomes roped in anchor, learns to stamp down stars, has the body blue broken into house, named from any moon to monster, first by some god in a helmet, then by the body herself. How quickly a bearing of breasts drawn by the two of my child hands is swept from the slate. How naked is my mother's apology as I, emptied toy in hand, and rushed from the door. How sudden is the knowing of shame, of learning this first part of us to cover when uncovered. What's kept closed behind doors, what humiliation. It could burn the whole house down. So then, how right is my making of blame? The hurt of each poem, hard metal core of my pen molded by men, how marked is emancipation. With a mother beaten into any woman's body, imagine who her child could be. Each time I look, she could change. Never mind, she was given first to me bare. Never mind, I did not turn then from her bruised body, even when drawn in tears. Back then, breasts were known by a child who just didn't know any better, or maybe she did. Maybe she knew the problem promise of bluing, of blues, of never quite finished moons. So I'm going to try and fit 2 more in, is that okay? Okay. The next one is dedicated to my sisters, Stephanie and Megan. My sister's dance. A fingernail pressed against porcelain prays back slow. A stone sure hurt as milk sliced from the stem. My sister's dance is not this, is no finger break umbilical stepping mad as morning, no violet glory leading some fence. My sister's dance is not hungry blue, is not mother's dress cold in bath against our legs. My sister's dance will not bring like water, does not break the lip of any woman. It cannot sit in slack jaws pleading for air. My sister's dance can rise any woman from any still state. It can leave a woman, leave like a woman. And then my sister's dance could be as tall as telephone poles, but more than crackling phantom, because my sister's dance is calling. It is talking about college. It will not be the hesitant honey in anyone's green tea. My sister's dance rough. My sister's dance lonely. My sister's dance spanning continents, passing lands of broken fingers, stomping out 6 sleeping capsules, capsulating, yes. My sister's dance reaching the clash of narwhals in the closing sea, holding air as long as it needs to. And our mother will claw out this tub, and I will get up too, because my sister's dance is ringing and I am answering. Last one. So this is a self-portrait as cowbird. And I've talked about this a little bit with some people, but it's a brood parasite. And you guys can also just look this up because, I'm not going to talk too much. But it's a brood parasite, so it doesn't build its own nest and raise its own young. It lays its eggs in other nests, and shit happens because of it. And so, so I think the important thing, I guess, to know is that one of the things that can happen is the other baby birds could learn to sing like a cowbird instead of the original song. And also people really hate them, so they try to exterminate them and stuff. So self-portrait was cowbird. Eyes shut in mucus and sun, I know what I am. Masquerading blackbird, con, my hunger is loud and round as a single egg. No mother gripped me by the neck to dip in any river. I am brown-headed and mortal, perfect to box in and kill. Blame me for your carrier pigeons. Let me be the reason for your lost messages, your cut languages. I can teach little children how to siren monsters. You will barely recognize them. Oh, let me be bad, boogeyman, slicking back mane to spit worms like little white pills. So many egg-shaped sorrows broken into collision of blood and yellow. So many ways to know unkind. My instinct with softness is the same as any other's, to touch or to smother. Let me hold you. Cloud of bird, will-o'-the-wisp, the hard bones inside, the question, the answer.
song music. He said, Fantasy by Mariah Carey featuring ODB. Like, not without ODB. We're not allowed to play it unless it's the one. Okay, so there you go. So Kelly Andrews is our next reader, and I really like her. She's great. I mean, I like all of y'all, but she's pretty special. Let me tell you about her. Her first cat book, Mule Skinner, has come out with Dancing Girl Press, and it's available on their website. You can buy our poetry. Come on, that's amazing. All right, yes. When she was a teenager, she saw Titanic in the theaters 5 times. And let me just use her language here. Friendly reminder, that movie is really effing long. She's never broken a bone in her life, but once when she was 4 or 5, she ran into a doorknob and had to have stitches above her right eye. Let's give it up for Kelly Andrews.
I'm gonna stand behind this thing. Seems nice. Okay, so gonna be real unprofessional with you guys. I got this book in my mailbox. Yes. I don't know if you can see this, but it says, I could pee on this and other poems by cats. And Emily Maloney got this for me for my birthday, which was fantastic. So I thought I would open with one of the poems out of this. Because I didn't mention cats at all in my bio, so I feel like this is really appropriate. Okay, this is titled, I Lick Your Nose. I lick your nose. I lick your nose again. I drag my claws down your eyelids. Oh, you're up? Feed me. All right, and now I'm going to read some really serious poems. So that was like a really great transition poem to pick. All right, Resurrecting. Call it unnatural. A phantom picks up the line. Love is how to learn to leave, like petals falling from a tulip tree. Call it intangible. Memory, thick as wool, worn and faded, unspools until it's the faintest bruise, a bleeding below the surface. Call it morning, when birds I cannot name, returning after a long migration, sing like worried apparitions, blue-winged wallowers. Call it swallowed tongue, a muffled voice recorded, plays on repeat, says my name, the time, it's dark again, says my name, over metallic cough. Call it otherworldly, to fill up unworn photographs, fragments of letters and movie stubs. All the pieces I've bitten off float in the bathtub and flake like dead skin. Call it shameful. I give birth ex nihilo, bathe you in a warm potion of oil and thyme, dress you in my own clothes, kiss you with my own mouth, show you off. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple more, like, sort of about death poems. And then I'm gonna read some sexy poems, because I thought, you know, death and sex and no taxes, but like, that's kind of the deal. Okay. Playing Dead. I am but a fledgling fleeing this granite night. After fleshing my hands, my arms, my body is a rack of thistlebone. I lie in the grass beside a mound of dirt. Let the beetles crawl across my nose. I'm dead, I say, and the headstones don't move, but if they did, I'd want them to grow vines and bear a tart fruit, one that stains with every touch. It's never quiet in a grove of graves, my own breathing syncopating with cicadas, and I'm sure I've swallowed a once living thing, sure my lips parted just a little and something moved into me and stayed inside, sure if I speak again the sound will bruise every last rib, awaken what I cannot let die. I'm going to take a drink real quick. I'm really bad about like talking in between poems. I'm just going to do this real fast. And I'm also like nervous about this whole filming thing. Like I don't even want to look in that direction and pretend like this is happening, but it's happening. So I'm going to read the next poem now. All right. Final Purification. When alone, a swallowing sound can be as loud as an orchestra, and everything exists in this room where I turn pages with a licked thumb, wrap my ashy hair around my neck like a festive scarf, a loose noose too nervous to become a kindling rope. Is it too much to want past lovers to call upon me as I'm dying? For each to stand in line as if I'm made of bread and wine? To kiss a cheek, my hand, peck these dried lips? Won't anyone regret not having stroked these stocky legs, these pale breasts one last time? I just want someone to place my heart on a pyre and push this burning part of me out to sea. I make a fairly good ghost, hovering above headboards at night so that no one ever feels like I'm gone. Is that you? They whisper, and I rattle the bed slats, blow cool air into their ear. Sometimes I go down on them while they sleep, moving from house to house, wondering who misses my tender touch the most. All right, and then I'm going to read like sort of an older poem, I guess, and one after that that's much newer, because I was like, oh, I'm reading a bunch of sexy stuff. So this is an older one. Seduction at 16. Beer draw backdrop and neon signs light up the wood-paneled walls. He's mimicking my movements, one long makeshift stare. 20 years my senior easy, and I'm grimacing through the watered-down gin, my first taste of something so bold. Sorry. Okay. Hold here, he says, zipper burn on soft skin. Ice cubes slide across the marble counter, pool sticks pound against peeling paint. Every mouth is moving, mapping the night. My back against the dumpster, he dips down to eye level, grabs my gussied up face. Take off that skirt. And fuck if I want it, pantyhose pulled, the cold metal on the backs of my thighs, stench of all that's rotting hovering behind our heads. In the heat of his hurriedness, no one notices my pale, shaking legs, his near limp dick. All right, one more. Kingdom of Lust. 1. Outside of a converted church, he fills my immaculate mouth. It's that time of year when everything feels warm and wet all at once. From the arched entrance, fragments of conversation carry like a fervor of whispered prayers. Oh Jesus, I choke out. 2. I will kiss any man who can speak in tongues, who appreciates a large ass, who knows how to use a saint figurine, who will desanctify any relic to see my eyes roll back. 3. In a rural town, I watch women fall into the arms of ushers, their limp bodies on display near the pulpit. To know the Holy Spirit, one must believe all things are possible. 4. I want to be paralyzed by the inexplicable, want a man whose touch is so sacred I cannot stand. Give me a saccharine lust I can revive again and again. Move me by any means, Father, bring me to my knees.
So next we have Cumi, and I'm just going to read her bio verbatim in the first person that she wrote it in. So it's that good. I have a cat named Theodore Lawrence Ikeda. I like beer, puppies, and ice cream. I'm very lucky.
So I talk a lot of smack about nonfiction being the best genre, but actually I aspire to poetry, so I'm really honored to sneak in here among the poets. Just pretend like I'm a poet. I'm one of them, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read one piece, and it's a fragmented piece with many sections that indirectly speak to each other. And so if you feel a little lost, you're supposed to. It's called Hafu. The 4 of us were a family under one roof for less than 5 years. That was in Japan, in Shizuoka Prefecture. My parents ran an English language school out of our home in a small room off the carport. My Japanese father explained linguistic concepts in Japanese, and my American mother taught conversational English. The language was their work, but also the link between them, their life plans, their day-to-day, and their fights, all in English. It was the language of the home they'd made together. For them to speak only English in the house was deliberate, but my brother and I preferred to speak Japanese. We teased our mother when she tried to do the same. She describes our thickly accented teasing as we laughed and said that her Japanese was very funny. Even then, the four of us weren't fully fused as a family, language and culture barriers always present. I search a family photo album for a picture with all of us together. I don't find one. When I ask my mother about a family picture, she can't remember there ever being one taken with the four of us together in one shot. When I was 4 and my brother was 6, my mother left my father. Their unlikely adventure of bringing two cultures together under one roof, their dreams of a family, all stayed in Japan. She took her children with her, brought us to the American South where she had grown up, where we were supposed to feel at home now. And one of us would grow up to choose our mother's country, the other our father's. As a child, when I asked my mother about being half, she said, "You're not, you're double." I watch a preview for Hafu, the mixed race experience in Japan. It opens with dark Beethoven-esque piano, scenes of Japanese children on a playground. Then voices come in, native Japanese speakers with non-native faces, sharing their experiences of not fitting in, of not being accepted. The preview closes with shots of each key character, their names followed by designations of nationality. Australia times Japan, Venezuela times Japan, Korea times Japan, Mexico times Japan, Ghana times Japan. To get me, my parents multiplied Japan and America. A companion video shows Japan's changing demographics. More foreign nationals are moving to Japan and more Japanese are leaving. Am I counted among these numbers? One of the 1.1 million Japanese living abroad? I was born a Japanese national, only additionally American once my mother applied for my citizenship at the American consul in Tokyo 9 months after I was born. My U.S. passport lists Japan as my place of birth. As a child, I was devastated to find out I could never be America's president. As teenagers in America, my brother and I had to renew our Japanese passports before they expired. The Japanese consulate closest to our South Carolina home was in Atlanta, a 6-hour drive. I remember being excited as my mother drove us into that city of skyscrapers. I was wearing a pink sweater and a headband. The consulate was in a small portion of a clean marbled, air-conditioned building, and the beige carpet swallowed our laughter when we entered. The middle-aged Japanese women thought we were in the wrong place, spoke to us only in Japanese when they understood why we were there. I remember the drive home as quiet, ashamed, scolding myself for not knowing how to sign my name in Japanese, the disapproval and silence of those women, and how small I felt in their presence. Junketsu Shugi is a Japanese phrase translated as pure-bloodism. During World War II, German ideas of racial superiority spread in the land of the rising sun. Women related to those with leprosy or intellectual disability were sterilized. The Japanese government wanted a pure race of pure blood. Ainoko is a derogatory term used for people of mixed race, Japanese plus something other. It's often misunderstood as meaning love child, the I confused for the phonetically identical word for love. But I am not Ainoko. I am Ainoko, a child not of love, but of interval. In the 1970s, hafu, from the English half, became a popular nomenclature for the same. In recent decades, to be hafu has become cool as hafu newscasters, models, and actors rise to stardom in Japan. I've met others who are hafu, becomes friends with them. They always more Japanese than me. Their Japanese mothers raised them to speak Nihongo. My case seems to be the exception, a Japanese father with a foreign wife. I have the Japanese last name they lack, dual citizenship, my name written in Japanese characters in the family registry, but I don't have the language, the customs. I try to speak to my hafu friends in Japanese, and they respond in English, an amused and slightly annoyed look on their faces. When I went to Hawaii to see my brother marry his Japanese bride, I walked the streets of Honolulu, an unfamiliar feeling of sameness and home in this place I'd never been. Other tourists asked me for directions. Locals smiled at me as they ignored the throngs of visitors, obviously white or obviously Japanese. I was neither and neither. When I returned to my job teaching in Tacoma, I began spending my free time looking at the websites of Hawaiian community colleges, daydreaming of sun and sand, and never being asked what I am. When I find out that my mother's ancestors were in the KKK, I am compelled, but not surprised. The older I get, or perhaps the more aware I become, I notice how often colored and oriental come out of my grandfather's mouth, the small comments. There goes a colored policeman. And then, after a pause, not the policeman can't be colored. I don't say anything. I want to be respectful, want to assume the best of my family. They grew up in a different time. There's not much diversity in the hills of Tennessee and West Virginia. And I think of having children and whether I could stay quiet if these comments were made in front of them. How do I point to a subtle bigotry and name it? Point to my grandfather and ask how he can be blind to the contradiction of loving me so much, his half-Oriental granddaughter. The KKK revelation comes in a West Virginia Ruby Tuesday at a gathering of my mother's family, the Wardens. Barbara leans over her chicken salad, her voice a murmur as she speaks to me below the din of our party of 6. I've seen the papers. Barbara is my mother's cousin, and I like her, her tiny frame and white hair, her soft voice, and the way she asks questions filled with mischief, which I didn't catch on to until I heard her do it again and again. There's a slight smile in her blue eyes, one of them permanently half closed, as she anticipates and receives my delighted reaction. Having roots in the rebellious Warden clan, we both love trouble, intrigue. Ooh, intrigue. Intriguing. I don't know, that's not as romantic. Okay. We both love trouble, intrigue, and secrets that can't be kept. Before this, in the larger table conversation, a horse story was shared, the Ku Klux Klan making its first appearance. My distant cousin tells of my great-grandfather's brother, Homer, and how he had a beautiful horse, his pride and joy. Homer's close friend asked a favor, could he borrow the horse for the weekend, and Homer agreed. He was generous. What he didn't know was that his friend would ride the borrowed horse into a KKK rally, the prize animal recognizable to everyone there. The rider, in full garb, was assumed to be Homer. This was the end of the story, and I clapped my hands and laughed along with the rest of the table because this was a funny Warden tale. The high stakes for Homer were not explored because the eruption of laughter marked the end of the story, a successful story. Because this is how Wardens are together, and I was one of them. During the lunch, my distant relatives, who I'd met for the first time that day, asked me about my father's side of the family. I answered their questions and shared that it wasn't until I was 15 that I came to understand that I don't look white. Another cousin, by then having decided that she liked me, quickly responded, "You do look white, I really think you do." It was a strange thing to say, and I could only understand it as kindness, welcome. I thanked her. As a younger adult, I bristled when people asked me what I was. I insisted to the world that I am white. But when people ask me what I am, they are not asking me to explain my culture. They are asking me to explain my face, my name. Sometimes I say that my father is Japanese and my mother is American, white American, I have to clarify further. At other times I say that even though my father's Japanese, I identify most with my mother's southern roots. As a new instructor at a Washington University, I receive an email invitation to a luncheon for faculty of color. I don't know what to do, and I asked my colleague Ryan, a Hafu with Japanese upbringing but a completely Western name, whether he had been invited. He had not. I answered the invitation. Please take me off this email list as I do not consider myself a person of color. I wish now that I had taken the time to explain that response, to make the suggestion that they allow faculty to self-identify as people of color rather than making assumptions based on appearances and names. My boyfriend, a white Michigan boy who grew up surrounded by cornfields, accuses me of being selectively Japanese. He's right. He tells me of a conversation he had, a friend of his asking what kind of music I like. He likes white girl music. When he tells me that he'd said this, I beam. "You're so weird," he responds, shaking his head. Months later, I text them from a crowded West Virginia Wendy's. I'm the only non-white person here. He likes to sing to me in the tune of the Siamese Cat song in Lady and the Tramp. "You are Japanese when you please." I laugh and continue the song. "I ain't Japanese when I don't please."
Our next reader is Caleb Washburn. Caleb has read 5 books by Vladimir Nabokov, none of which are Lolita. He prefers a bearded John Hamm to a cleanly shaven one, but a shirtless John Hamm is the best. He's currently experimenting with curry recipes, but the general trend is that the meals taste better the next day as leftovers. Please welcome Caleb Washburn.
I have to I don't have my poems in order, which is bad. So I'm going to be doing a mix of old stuff and new stuff in the sense that some of the stuff will be revisions that are really different revisions, and then some of the other parts will be I'll read excerpts from poems from my first year because they're from series that first years and second years haven't heard at all, but then I've written in those speakers again, and so I want you to so I'm going to take an excerpt of old poems so you can hear the speaker the first time, and then I'll read a new thing where they're doing something different. So this is just a revision. So this is actually, I have one poem that I revised and there had 2 very different results. So I'm going to read both of them. So this is, "I want what I want like the heart. I heard is the smallest bell of an organ, the chime your ward rings from the dusty attic, and still you attend to its sores and fears. But what sores they are! Even when I give myself the best possible attention, I take terrible care of this poor thing. My heart can't know how bad it is for itself to desire, with no mind for the stresses of unending desire. It's of a destructive sort, but how can you blame something with no hands? One might as well take one's heart out and admire it for its beauty, for all the good it'll do one in the end. If you would take yours out, if you would hand me yours, I would bejewel it and wear it on my head, call it my coronary thorns, my keter and only goal, pronounce it incomprehensible, and show it off. I would wear it as proudly as the veil of a very proud widow on every anniversary she still keeps." So this is that same poem, but it's very different. So, I want what I want like the heart. A heart of mirrors and soot, a heart of honey and crawling larvae, a heart of redundant explosions, a heart of bile and tongues, a heart of water repeating, a heart of moans and ears, a heart of sucked toes, a heart of fish livers used for bait, a heart of smoke and wind, a heart of traffic cones, a heart of muscle and triggers, a heart of swords, a heart of coins, a heart of men in gym shorts getting rained on, a heart of irritated skin, slick scales, debris, and crushed shining stag beetles, a heart of mouths, but also a heart of fingers, a heart of yellow oranges, a mine and the resulting hole. So those are those 2 poems, or one poem in 2 parts, I don't know. So then I had a couple series that I wrote in my first year. And so I had one which is a persona poem in the persona of a drone, so the war, drone warfare drone. And I had another series of poems of a man living in another man's mouth, and so there's really surreal and weird. And then this summer I started writing poems that were like a combination, like these two speakers, and I thought they were different poems, but this like I was writing a drone poem and another man in the mouth poem, but all of a sudden these two poems seemed really similar, and they were really similar. So I'm going to read an excerpt of the drone and an excerpt of the man in the mouth, and then I'll read you the two new things next to each other. So, the night of the man in your mouth, starting at part 2. Tonight I become a small starling, a naked, ugly thing. A man holds me in his mouth, but it's awkward. My feet have nowhere to go, so I slide them under his tongue. He tells me my feet are cold. He corrects me, telling my feet aren't under his tongue, but resting against his genioglossus, which strikes me as odd. Why does he know that word? 3. Even though I'm no bigger than a beak in the roof of his mouth, I measure myself in the gap left between the two rows of teeth. I rest and imagine the space bothering him, having to offset his bite, the space becoming a slow ache. I measure the opening between his lips, parsed into an oblong O. That's my gap. That's me. 4. The man's teeth chatter, and I scare easy, so I burrow into his tongue. I cleave through wetness, this root, this bulb, this starch, and it's warm. It's warming my skin. From the inside, I thought I would know why it moves. I don't. What's he saying? It beats me. I know what it's like to slap and not know why. Reverberations help static feel static. The floor of his mouth, nothing but small granular bumps, trembles, a plastic bag pulled taut in wind. The wind dies, but I'm left with the plastic. I've cut into the tongue itself, waiting for it to break into thrush, a throstle, something that can pick me apart and never stop picking, something that never stops. I'm waiting for something to bloom in him and, like a starling flock, keep blooming. 5. I'm waiting for a darling flock, a blooming starling, something that never stops picking me apart, something that can throstle me through this thrush, something to cut this tongue. I'm waiting with a plastic bag pulling me taut like wind. Wind dies, his mouth trembles, nothing but granular bumps, feels static. I know what it's like to slap reverberation static. I don't know what he's saying. I thought I would. It moves, I don't, it beats me. So then I'll switch to the drone poem. So this is from Why Drones Seek. I'll just read the first part of it. 1. You can't tell me war isn't romantic, capital R romantic. I wouldn't believe you if you did. I am engaged in war. How many trees have I made weep? How many clouds have I made shout down the hills? How many sunsets have I bled dry until the sun, capital S sun, sank into the bosom of the horizon like a dried up flaccid moon? How many households do I need to strip to their naked frame until you believe me? War is romantic. I can set this all to music. I am a die-hard romantic. I seek things to the end of the world. This takes work. Once I thought I was in love. I was given the image of a man, his face round like he swallowed beehives. He should have been so easy to find. I've learned just how many miles I can fly on empty. I can fly all night. The sight of the pathetic moon motivates me. Waxing is the motion of comfort. Waning is the motion of desire. I prefer to fly in daytime. I lost the next page. Something, something, something. America, America. I don't know where that far went. Yeah, I'm just going to end there. Oh, I found it. The shadow I leave across the dusty fields is an intimate mirror. One moment full of rocks, next moment a burnt-out building. I see eyes in char-darkened windows. Sometimes I see faces in everything. Sometimes I can't do my job. I can't do my job if I'm seeing things. But there are times when I remember why I do this. America, America. I think it needs this setup before just the random. Okay. So then I have two untitled poems, and these are, so I'm going to read the Man in the Mouth poem first, and then I'll read the drone one. As a bird, all I wanted were more hands and some uncovered skin. I longed for a caress I could feel, nothing to get in the way. Nothing was as big as I thought the sky would be, except that mouth. Nothing was as hollow as I thought a tree should be, except my bones. But that beak was good for something. I only ever learned to sing 3 notes, so I put them to work. Oh, I made myself bright because I wanted to attract everything. Forget your odes. Nothing is as painful as a love song stuck in the back of your throat. This is the drone. I sang the news of the day, but no one thought it beautiful. We don't want requiems, and so I stopped. I sang them too poorly. I am a thing of the air, and dark and low. I cannot take the ground into me, and the ground cannot take me into it. We are just so different. But still, I just want one day to sink deep into the ground and turn my sight up to the sky. But that's it. Yes, that's it, to love something but not need it. To squint when looking into the sun, or at a cute boy as blinding as the sun. It is so hard to still want something, to find it desirous when looking at it head on. I have been like a god all my life and lonely. Nothing can prepare you for that.